let's go back once again. All right. First of all, let's begin with having something like a header, right? Something like a header to represent what my visual be about. So I'm going to my insert tab, and I could insert a text box, or I could add a shape to my report. So I'm selecting shape, and I'm selecting a rounded rectangle, and I just want to do something like this. Okay, now this is not crafting stone, but you should have some sort of header, all right? Some sort of header. Now, outside of my, if I unselect my, what's it called now? My shape that I just added, you could see that the only two icons usually have here are build visual and format your page, which is if you want to add a background, wallpaper, and all that. But if I have selected on my shape now, I have other options here like shape and general, which is the format shape option, and we're going to see it. Okay, so basically this is to change the shape if you want to make it more rounded. Now these options will be different for different shapes and different themes. Okay, so let's say we want to change our color to be more thematic. Since we're dealing with coffee, I want it to have something related to the brown color. Okay, something a bit related to brown. I want to increase maybe transparency. You could also add a visual border um, just to make it stand out. So now all this is up to you. All this is now up to you. Your dashboard must be visually presentable. Okay, so you need to make it look good as much as possible. Okay, you need to make it look good as much as possible. So let's say those are the only two I'm concerned with. You could add a shadow if you want to, glue and all that. The option for action is if you want something to be attached to that particular visual, not just a shape. For example, I could make this to take me to a next page, make it to apply slicers, which we'll see, Q&A, page navigation, and all the rest. Okay, so I could select an action to be performed if I click on either a shape or an object. Okay, whatever it is I added. In this case, I don't want that. General has to do with properties like size. You want to add title, effects, like backgrounds and all that. Let me add a visual border. Um, um, I want it to still be this. Okay, fine. So let's say I have that. Now the next thing I want to insert is a text box. I want to insert a text box, so you could see that my text box has been brought up here, and I'm just gently going to move it up here. Maybe I want to fit it a bit. Okay. I also may want it to be transparent. Okay. I want it to be completely transparent. So my text box is there, but I've increased the transparency to 100%. So you would not need to see. There's no feel. There's no color feel. Okay. There's no color feel. If my transparency was down, you would have the all white. If I had chosen another color, you would have found the color. But if I have my transparency all out, it means that there's not going to be any color right there. So I could type my text. Let me begin by increasing my font size to maybe 40. You could pick a font. Unfortunately, there are not much good fonts here. I like contours. So let's say coffee sports coffee sales report rather. Okay, let's say coffee sales report, and I'm going to highlight all that. Maybe I want to make it bold as well. Remember, I said these are up to you guys. These are up to you. Are we still together? If you're still with me, drop a reaction, guys. Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Victor. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Sidonia. Now I want to change the color. I want to change the color to let's say white, so it looks something of this sort. Remember, you're being an artist in a sense, because you need it to be visually appealing. So whatever beats your cake, guys, whatever makes you feel like you're doing a good job, do it well. Okay, so everything boils down to you. All right, so I think I prefer the white. Okay, so there are several other things we could do with that, but so we don't spend all our time on just designing this. Now let's proceed to our charts. Okay, let's begin by picking our first visual, and I said, remember, it's based on what you want to visualize. And let's start by, we said we want to give information, right? General information on sales. So let's see which product had the most sale, right? Which product had the most sales, or which product was sold the most. Okay, so I want to use a stacked bar. And I'm going to start with name, because that's what we want to see. Now remember, I told us last week, the moment I selected the bar chart, we have the options that are available to the bar chart: y-axis, x-axis, legend, and all that. So if I check on name, it begins to enters name there. And then let's say I want to see the quantity of this particular product that was sold. So in orders, I'm going to select quantity. All right, so now we have information that tells us on the amount of this particular product that was sold, the quantity of the products that were sold. Now you could see the names of the axis labels, which is up to you to change. So you could right click and rename. Okay, now notice how Power BI tried to give you a title automatically, and of course it's showing you what measure it's doing here, which is sum of quantity. So if I want to rename that from axis, remember, whatever you're doing here doesn't affect your original table. It's just for your visual. Okay, what you're doing here is just for your visual. So let's call this that's roast. Okay, and then let's rename this to quantity sold. Let's rename this to quantity sold. Okay, now it tried to give you a name and all the rest. So we've done a bit of practice on this part, so we don't have much problem there. Now remember when I showed you initially that we had just two icons here? If I unselect everything, you have build visual and you have format your page report. But if I'm on a particular chart, you have three options there. You have your build visual, which is what allows us to build, design. Okay, and we also have the format your visual, which will allow us to edit our charts. Okay, so this is where you could edit items on the y-axis, edit items on the x-axis, and so on and so forth. Add grid lines, add zoom sliders, so you can play around with that. Let's say for the y-axis, remember this is y-axis, you could change the fonts of the values. If you want to stick to a thematic color of brown, maybe, so you could see
the labels. Let's say I don't really have a problem with all this. Title is roast there, so you could edit it here as well if you want to change that. If so, I'm just showing us an example. um, so notice that as I'm typing, it's also changing over here. Okay, as I'm typing, is also changing over there. Right, so you could do that, or you could just leave it as it was before. All right, you could just leave it as it was before. Now, because I've typed in something, I've removed it, it's no longer showing. So let's just go ahead and have the rows. Show title only. You want to change the font as well. Maybe you want to bold in your font just so it's easy to pick. I may even get to remove it subsequently, because you also do not want to overcrowd your visual. Okay, you also do not want to overcrowd your visual. If it's clear from your title, if it's clear from your labels, if it's clear from your subtitles, then there will be no need to have it in your as it axis title again. Okay, there may be no need. Okay, title, that sorts it out for title. I don't have a problem with layout. Let's just quickly do the same thing for x-axis. Now, x-axis contains your numerical value, right? Contains your numerical value. We have minimum, maximum, and all the rest. So just in case I wanted the minimum value to be around 1000, seeing that all of them are around 1000, I could change the minimum value here to say 1000. So you can now see that the minimum value is now between 1000 and above, right? I didn't specify for maximum, which can help you see more as long as they are all on the same level. But take note that doing this may introduce some form of bias. So you just have to be careful, because you're trying to reveal insights and you want to make sure it's as plain as possible. Doing this particular step may inform some kind of bias, so you just have to be careful how you use it. What bias may it introduce? Now, if I bring this to 1100, see how the difference between light, medium, and dark is now looking so big. All right, the difference between light, medium, and dark is now looking like it's a very significant value. Meanwhile, originally when we started from 0, they are around the same value. Do you understand? So when we say that you can introduce a bias, it may want to bend the report to look like what it's not looking like. Are we good? Are we good? So if you're doing something like that, make sure you make it clear that these values are on a range or something, right? But let's just go on with that. Let me have 1100 for the range. Values, I don't want title. Okay, and I want the label to be just like I had there. And let's say I want it bold or not. Okay, so that's it for my x-axis. Okay, now please take note of what we're doing, guys, because there may be a reason to not do this repetitively, and I'm going to explain. This is if you want to add grid lines. You could already, there are vertical grid lines. You could turn that off. If you want to zoom slider, if you turn on the zoom slider, allows you to zoom in and out of your data, zoom in and out of your data. Okay, so it's in a way allows you to manipulate minimum and maximum, right? Just for reference purposes. Okay, so doing this will play out. One of the disadvantage of putting that minimum that I did is, supposing we add a filter or a slicer which introduces values less than 1100, I would not see that on my chart. I'm going to explain. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as this, right? So just in case that scenario comes up, we're going to see that. So let's say I don't want the slider. Now for bars is where I can change the color of the bars. Okay, For bars is where I can change the color of the bars. Currently, whatever I do here applies to all the categories, but if I want to pick just a particular one, I could do that. So I could select dark. And meanwhile, you want to do this to reveal insight as well. Okay, I could select dark, and then for color, maybe I'll use a dark color. Please, there's no law to this, but you're trying to cast the story and also make sure that your data is revealing, is connected to what you're talking about. Your report is connected to what you're talking about. Medium, I could choose a lighter color, and for light, I could use a lighter color. Right, that doesn't look light to me. Okay, something of this sort. Right, I could do this for all three of them. Am I making sense, guys? Okay, so we could add other visuals. Let's say that's all I want to do for bars. Sometimes I like adding borders as well. Let me do that. Though it's not going to show for the last one so well. And I needed to select this one. Okay. For all, yeah. Now ribbons do that, not necessary. Data labels just give information, so you may want to add data labels just to let people easily see what they are. So I could change the value. Sum of field quantity, if you want to change that to another measure, you can do that. If you want to change the summarization to average or whatever, you can do that. But let's just stick to what we want to do. So I want to change the color still to around the same brown, and I want to make it bold so it's easy to see. Now let's assume that I'm done with all my visual designs. I could go to general, which is no longer about the data itself. It's no longer about the data and the bars, but the chart itself. Okay, so like title, effects, like I showed us. So quantity sold by roast, I could change the title of this chart to say amount roast type sales. Okay, roast type sales. I could make it a two heading. You want to be a bit more consistent in your font, bold it so it's easy to read, and okay. Please don't shoot me. I'm not the best color artist. You could also have a subtitle. Um, Let me increase the size of this header. Okay. You could also have a subtitle, which will help give more perspective to your dashboard or to your chart. So your header is not supposed to be excessively long. Your header is not supposed to be something that it's not supposed to be a paragraph that wants to tell us the life story of the chart, how you kicked a stone where you are designing and all the rest. So your header is supposed to be precise. It's supposed to be straight to the point. For any reason you want to give more context, you have to do it in your subtitle, right? So we could say quantity, roast type, quantity sold. or amount of roast type sold, whatever amount of coffee roasts sold. Okay, I could use a heading 3, just a step lower than what I used above, and then still stick with Kosolas and font 11 bold. It's not supposed to contend with your header. It is not supposed to contend with your header. Me and my choice of colors is now coming to fight me. Okay, so let's say we have something of this sort. You could add other edits, effects. Let's say if you want to use a chart background, you could increase the transparency of this so that your chart background is going to show. I want to add a visual border so that one chart will be distinct from the other. It will be easy to pick out from others, and I'm increasing the width to maybe 2. Blah 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 blah. Data format is if you want to change the values, maybe you want them in billions, in millions, and all that. So let's say I'm good with this. Okay, let's say I have my first chart done now. All right, now the next thing I could do is pick my next chart that I want to visualize, but I would prefer to duplicate this chart and then go on to edit my new chart. Okay, I would prefer to duplicate this chart and go on to edit my new chart. And the reason basically is it's going to be a bit more stressful going through each of these designs, these small designs of color, boundaries, going through it over and over again, especially if it's something you want to be consistent across multiple charts. So I could Control C and Control V. Okay, so now I have a copy of that chart, which I can now change and use it for something else. So let's say I want let's say I want a line chart. Let's say I want a line chart that's going to reveal to me the trend of sales made. Okay, the trend of sales made across the years. Now, so you could see that the designs are still there previously. Some of those basic design of color, of font, and all that are still there. Okay, so that's going to help you a bit. Now, if it's a line chart, I would strongly advise that you want to stick with a date variable. Scary, isn't it? Now, the reason why it's showing us like this is that you don't want that. Okay, it's because we had coffee type there as well. So coffee type should have come under legend. Okay, roast type should have come under legend. So we'll see how that plays out for us. But let's just go. Now in hierarchy, we don't want daily sales. We can stick with month across the quarter, or let's just remove quarter. So let it just be across the months. Okay, let it just be across the months. Now these are data labels which we could turn off, and I could have the roast names in legend. So you see how they are consistent with the colorings, right? Excuse me, guys. So now we have the different amount of coffee roasts sold across the years. Okay, so we now know how much of them we are sold in each month, how much of them we are sold in each month. So let's say we are not interested in quantity. let's say maybe what we want to see is maybe profit. So let's see total profit. Okay, so let's see total profit, right? And we could remove data labels, because that's making our data look more difficult to read. You may want to add zoom sliders just in case you want to focus on a particular period to see how the data is. Legends were cool, except I want to change the title to be black. Yeah. Oh no, it's not allowing me to do that for title. So there's no need then, right? So anyone that sees that knows that it's roast types, this, and all the rest. So let's say I'm not doing any other major course. We just need to focus, all right? We just need to focus on what we need to. Let me see what I can do for that data labels. Because there's a way we could edit it to be a bit more clean. A position, auto, we could reduce the density so it only picks very key points. Maybe that's fair enough. You may want to, okay, the value is fine, length from the previous one. Let's say that's that. Let's say that's that. Data labels. All right, let's say we're cool with this. We go to general, and you want to change the title. Roast type sales, no. We could say roast profit trends. Roast profit trend. And for a subtitle, we could say trend of profits generated, trend of profits from roasts. Okay, so trend of profit from roasts, um, trend of profits roast between 2019 to 2022. Okay, just to give you a bit of a context. All right. Now I've not introduced us to this other part. This for analytics. Now you use it to get more insights for your data. For example, from the line chart, if we want to see if there is a trend, we could put on the trend line. If you want to put a particular, if you want to focus on a particular value or range, just in case maybe that's part of what you need to influence in your analysis or explain in your analysis, we could do this on this section. So I could put a maximum line, median line, which will help to point out that, oh, see, these are the people that did above the median, or this didn't do so well above the median, something like that. So let me, because what we're having here was sum of profit, I could change that color and all that, but honestly, I don't want to do that, so I could delete that. Okay, I could just delete that. But basically, those are the kind of things you could do from there. Average line would have made sense. But, all right, that's our second chart. let's pick another chart. So obviously, I just want to focus this chart now on roast types. Okay, I just want to focus on roast types. So I want to see in the different countries. I want to see in the different countries. Okay, so